with the anticipation of the formal presentation or tabling in the House of the budget estimates, the budget highlights as were read out last week, and the finance bill as well for further debate by the members. I would like to welcome Boniface Nyamo onto the panel. He is a political commentator. Karibu sana, Boniface. And just before you came on set, you had the kind of arguments here, because we are faced with a serious fiscal deficit. And pundits argue that it's a spending problem, not probably a revenue issue. There are challenges with the revenue collection, but it's majorly an expenditure problem. And I was using the example of State House, that in our planning, during the budget making process, you allocate a department this much money, and then in the middle of the year, you find it necessary to double that budget. Yet there was already a deficit. Isn't this just making the problem worse?
Thank you very much. I want to start by agreeing with those people who are saying that our problem is not revenue, our problem is expenditure. Why am I saying this? If you look at the budget that has just been presented by Badi, you realize we have a deficit of over 1 trillion. So I was asking myself, can you imagine a situation whereby you have a home, you have a wife, you earn 60,000, then your wife earns 40,000. When you put it together, it becomes 100,000. When you sit to plan for that month, you start planning for 150 or 200,000. It is irresponsible. It is a question of spending. I also want to give you examples for you to understand that it's not about yes, we have challenges with revenue, but at least we are supposed to live with within our means, not beyond our means. The president has been telling every Kenyan to tighten their belt. Unfortunately, it seems that this belt is only supposed to be tightened by Kenyans, but not the president and the people working for him. For example, State House, a budget of around 20 billion shillings. And previous governments, like the last 3 years, we were doing a budget of 5-6 billion. Then we are now doing what has doubled in State House. It's because of so many renovations that are necessary. If you look at State House today, it almost looks like a B&B. Then if you go forward, you look at the SHA.
What do you mean it looks like more like a B&B?
It looks like flashy boys hiding.
Have you ever been there?
I have been there several times.
Okay. So
countless times.
Yeah, I think the president has done an amazing job.
Let's just allow him to finish. I'll give you an opportunity.
So let's go to SHA. SHA, which is giving us a lot of problems. The system that SHA is using, and it's still failing, was procured at a cost of over 100 billion shillings. In the Muli, even where we are today, you also use systems. You know, systems can be expensive, but not to the extent of reaching over 100 billion shillings. Moving forward, you go to defense. I know defense is supposed to be funded, but if you look at the budget for defense, I'm not talking about security or internal security, defense, it almost doubled. Well, I have no problem with funding defense, but there should be an explanation. Why, for example, did we give defense 70 billion last year, and then this year you want to give it 140 or 150 billion? Are we at war? What is this that we are buying? You know, even if they say it is classified what, if it's vehicles you are buying, there's nothing classified about
Whose role do you think it should be to check this level of expenditure?
It is Parliament. Parliament should be the one checking the executive. Unfortunately, we have a member of Parliament in the name of Honorable Esther Passaris. She's here defending government instead of checking government. You know, Esther, Parliament is a norm in itself. It is not actually supposed to be speaking on behalf of government. The person who is supposed to be defending government and speaking on behalf of government and the president are the minister, the executive. Parliament is supposed to be asking the hard questions. Moving forward.
I come to you, Passaris. Now that you agree, Wakili Nyamo,
they will have. I just want to finish my point.
Very briefly.
Just to show you how they are just wasting money. You see, Nairobi-Naivasha Highway, it's being built as we speak. But the contract was cancelled. The initial contract was cancelled. The consequence of cancelling that contract cost us over 7 billion shillings. You know, it's like giving 7 billion shillings because of doing nothing. And it went with the French people and contractors. Lastly, if you look at Wajir, where we held our celebrations, it was good. We have no problem with that. But the problem with this government is priority. They built a beautiful stadium and we have no problem with that. But surely, If you go to Wajir and ask the people of Wajir, what is your priority? Are you sure? They will tell you that what we needed most to be constructed with almost 1 billion is a stadium. They need water, they need roads, they need good hospitals. So the problem with this government is expenditure and priorities.
As we wrap up this discussion about the budget, Wakili, you agree that it's a spending problem. Who is this that should check the spending by the executive?
I think we've spoken to that. My point is that
I think I'll repeat for the benefit of our audience.
I have said that we need to refine our budgets. We need to reduce our expenditure, and this is something that it's not necessarily for the top executive alone. As Kenyans, we also need to reduce our expectations on what the past that the government has can be able to provide. So it is a national discussion that we should have. But then it is imperative that we correct the impression. We need to correct the impression that budget is not an executive instrument. It is actually a parliamentary instrument. It is the budgeting process in the new constitution is done by parliament. The executive can just give a proposal, but the ultimate document is owned by parliament, and parliament gives it to the executive. So I think it is not proper to then attack a parliamentarian when the parliamentarian, like Esther Paresaris, defends that they put over 700 billion on education, and they put over 428 billion or something on devolution, and they put over 175 billion on healthcare. These are critical. We cannot measure on the small things, and we forget about the big things, and it is critical because it is only through this government that we have been able to expand. Where previous governments would employ 3,000 teachers, this government in 3 years has employed 100,000 teachers. That's revolutionary. That's not normal. You are talking about whether it's normal or not normal. That's not normal. This government is building infrastructure. Is in northern Kenya. It's not normal because sessional paper number 10 ensured that development was only concentrated in a few areas.
Good. No one is challenging that.
Building Rironi Mau Summit Road is not normal.
Thank you, Wakili.
Okay.
Thank you, Wakili.
Yeah.
The question comes back to Parliament and Madam Pasaris, because the issue is, fine, the executive may be willing to do all these things, but you can only do it according to what we can afford.
Yes.
And that is a role of Parliament. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, the issue is, whenever the executive comes with its spending plan, and it could be a wish list, is Parliament's role simply to rubber stamp that?
We cannot.
That State House can double its budget and you simply say yes? That's the question we're asking.
Let me tell you, we cannot spend what we don't have. If you know the procurement rules of this country, you have to have a budget before you can go and procure. So they're very open. They're saying, look, these are the plans that we have to do. This is the shortfall that we have. This is what we're going to collect with taxes. But if we spur up the economy, we might find that we might even collect it just through tax. I like what the president did with the housing levy. Everybody was against it, but then it was innovative. Let's find some money. I like what he's done with SHA. Let's peg the deductions to how much you're earning. I mean, I pay about over 30,000 for SHA. So I'm helping those who cannot pay. So I want to come back to what we were talking about in terms of the software for SHA. So if you have a private medical cover and you go to a hospital, it's biometric. SHA, this software of 100 billion is over a 10-year period. I don't know why we don't want to hear what is going on. It's over a 10-year period, so 10 billion every year for the software. But do you know how much we're going to save? We are going to save over 20 billion in fraud, because now you cannot go to a hospital and they say Pasaris was here, we operated her. You know, the auditor report said that there was a woman who had cesarean section over 5 times. So now you cannot do that, because for you to be treated, for you to get medication, for you to be operated, you have to present your finger. So your biometric. So Esther can only go there. So this system of 10 billion every year for the software is going to save us, right? And we were losing 20 billion, right? but probably now we'll be losing 30 billion, but with the 10 billion, we're still going to have a saving. So you see, these systems are put in place. You have to make these expenses so that you can actually improve the systems. And I think one of the things that we don't appreciate, or Kenyans don't appreciate, is how William Samoei Ruto is fighting corruption in his own strategic way. By putting this software, you will bang him and shout at him and say, oh, he's spending 10 billion, 100 billion. You know, when you say 100 billion, oh, software, he's given it to his friend, he's given it to somebody that they're making money. But at the end of the day, if you look at Susan Nyankumicha, when she was in the Ministry of Health, she actually flagged NHIF and said we were losing 20 billion annually on fraudulent claims. So for me, I think in the end, you know, time always has all the answers. We had the housing tax. Are we not seeing the houses? We've created over 800,000 jobs with housing. So as he just said, you know, education, we've put in a lot of money for education. So we're going to be able to fund health properly. We're going to be able to hire the teachers and pay the teachers. We're going to be able to take on the interns who are also asking for a pay. So, you know, everybody has to realize that it's a balancing act. For me, I think we need to obviously reduce the fiscal space, and we're working towards that. We're trying to make sagas and government entities to become more efficient. We had a few of them that came in, and we realized when they don't pay debts that they're supposed to be paid.
This is an active discussion.
Yes, yeah, we had this discussion just last week with two in Public Investment Committee, with two bodies that came to see us. It's in the Hansard, and we told them very clearly, you're not paying your debt. Government has to order. You're widening the fiscal. You're reducing the physical space, so we can't do other things. If we just manage our sagas in terms of oversight, for them to be able to do what they're supposed to do, to cover their own debt and not wait for a treasury to pay their debt, because we have to honor our debt. If we have a debt with Africa Development Bank, we have to honor it. Okay. So I think what I want to say is that, you know, when Uhuru Kenyatta was in State House, when he was the president, he was once asked, how can you handle corruption? And he said, it's a big elephant. No can do. But William Samoei Ruto is handling it through projects. Kenya has a construction site. I was in Mombasa recently.
Corruption is being handled through projects?
Through projects. You know what?
Which projects?
All the projects, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's housing, whether it's software for SHA. Because you are seeing where the money is going. Before, you were still spending the money, losing the money, but you couldn't see where it's going. Now the question is, we're seeing where the money is. There's medicines in hospitals, all right? There are beds being increased. There's classrooms being built. Nairobi has over 1 billion shillings in additional classrooms. Our children were not having classrooms. I mean, we're decongesting classrooms. So what I want to say is that's one way of dealing with corruption. Do the projects. Put the money so people can see the projects. When you look at all the housing projects, you cannot say that the 170 or 80 billion that we're collecting in the levy or we've budgeted for is lost. You're seeing the housing. All right. When you look at the schools, you're seeing the classrooms. I mean, I want to say that there are many ways to skin a cat. And here's one way. But we still have a problem with corruption in the sense that the various institutions that are still not well managed, right, are still having areas where they're siphoning. Okay. But I tell you one thing, this country is in a better space economically than it's ever been since independence.
The biggest problem we have is the spending.
Yes.
We currently have a deficit of 1.15 trillion shillings, which is causing a problem for everyone. If at all the spending changes through a supplementary budget, that deficit grows. It will have to be funded through domestic borrowing mostly. If at all KRA fails to collect what they had anticipated, that deficit grows even further. Pundits say it's a spending problem. What exactly can we do? Who should we look at, or who should we look to help us contain the level of spending by this administration? That's the main question we're asking. Part of what many people probably simplify is a government travel budget, the president's travel budget, that he spends too much on travel, foreign travel, for example, even locally. Right now, for example, the president is in France to attend the G7 summit. Not many people feel the necessity of it. It could be necessary, but on the face